Week 1 in college football. We have 3 top 10 matchups. That's the first time that has happened since the AP started doing a preseason poll in 1950. So, of course, Lee and the group will be in Columbus. Number 1, Texas against the defending champs, number 3, Ohio State. Second time since 1950 the 2 top 3 teams meet in their season opener. The number 1 team is a slight underdog. Then we have 9th-ranked LSU taking on 4th-ranked Clemson for the first time since they met for the national championship in 2020. LSU has lost each of its last 5 season openers since the year they won that title. And then on Sunday, we have number 6 Notre Dame and number 10 Miami. First time they will meet since 2017. Hurricanes beat the 3rd-ranked Irish 41-8 that day, but they've lost 8 straight games against top 10 opponents since then. And with college football back, we're going to do some of my draft prep. That's what I call this. I did it on the radio, Lewis, and I'm going to do it here. I just cheat.
I like it.
I just cheat. I get you, and I get Field Yates, and I get Jordan Rogers, and I get everybody on that helps me to do my draft prep. So by the time we get to Pittsburgh in April, all of my work is done. Morning, guys. Thank you. Field, let me start with you. Which college quarterback, in your view, has the most to prove as this season begins?
Yeah, Greeny, in my mock last week, Arch Manning went number 1 overall to the Cleveland Browns, an order determined by the Football Power Index here at ESPN. But it's pretty simple, Greeny. He's made 2 starts in his career, right? He's got under 100 career passing attempts. I think the traits are off the charts here for Arch Manning, but he has not yet been a starter in a game in which it was a true tested opponent. That changes on Saturday afternoon in Columbus when he faces off against the defending national champions. The ceiling is tremendous here for Arch Manning, but it's a massive, massive year to prove that he is going to belong in that number 1 pick consideration, whether it's in 2026 in Pittsburgh or the following year, because, of course, there has been some suggestions from his grandfather that he is going to stay for at least 2 more years at Texas.
All right, so let me give you the number that I promised you at the beginning of the show before I get Jordan in here. Let's put up C15. It is an extremely limited sample. I understand that. But among all quarterbacks that had at least 75 attempts last year, and there were 174 quarterbacks that met that criteria, Arch Manning had the 3rd best total QBR. Only Ohio State's Will Howard, whose team won the national championship, and Miami's Cam Ward, who was the number 1 pick in the draft, had higher. Now, again, before you start yelling at me, I understand. It was in limited spot duty. He started 2 games. He played in parts of 10 games. So let's talk about what we're really looking at. Jordan, let's look at the tape. Show us some plays that demonstrate why the NFL world is already in love with Arch Manning. So Jordan clearly doesn't hear me. That's the universal sign for he doesn't hear me because he's not responding at all. So, Lewis, let me turn to you and say, in the absence of Jordan's tape, why does the NFL world, why is Field Yates already saying he's going to be the number 1 pick in the draft?
Well, number 1, it's pedigree, obviously. We understand the bloodline that he comes from. Number 2, in the limited sample size, you see what the objective data says. Now, obviously, it's not a long sample size, but he has excelled in the moments, in the opportunities that he has had. Number 3, he's on a roster right now that obviously has some new, some guys that. But the reason why people are excited about it is because the flashes are absolutely spectacular. And he's being coached by one of the best offensive minds in college football, really, that exists in football today, in Steve Sarkisian. So we'll get a lot more answers this Saturday at 12 o'clock.
Right.
But the book is going to be written for him over the course of the next 3 months.
So I think that what's happening is people are looking at it and saying, well, wait a minute. If he's like Peyton and Eli, but he actually has all this running ability and all this physicality, all this athleticism that neither of his uncles had, then maybe he's going to be something special. Jordan, I think we've worked out our feed with you. So show us some tape here. Give us what it is the NFL world loves about Arch Manning.
Yeah, I think there's a few things. We talked about his athleticism. I think it's the deep ball for me. That's an area where Texas really struggled last year, and Quinn Ewers especially, but Manning is really good in this area, and especially when it comes to play action, right? A lot of this Steve Sarkisian offense has a pistol running back. The quarterback actually turn his back to the defense for a play action and then get his head back around. For a young quarterback, Arch excelled at re-identifying the defense, diagnosing it, delivering the ball downfield with accuracy. I thought that was an area that he really excelled. But I will say, and I'm going to say this, I don't know what you guys talked about when I went off air, the height doesn't match the tape. There are good things, and there are some good things, But the height or the tape to me doesn't tell you got a first-round draft pick or a top 10 or a number 1 overall draft pick or a Heisman hopeful. I think he's going to go into Ohio State. He's going to struggle because he hasn't played anybody. The last time we saw him against a really good defense was Georgia, and he looked out of place, right? He looked really good against UTSA, Louisiana Monroe, and Mississippi State, the worst defense in the SEC. I think there's still a lot for him to grow and a lot we need to see, like Lewis said.
Yeah, can you expand on that thought? I know you have some tape on that as well. And again, look, I understand we're piling so much on this very young man who was basically never really played in college football, but that's kind of the world we live in now with NIL and everything else. We've been talking about it for 5 or 6 years. So show us the areas where you think he's going to have to work.
Yeah, like any young quarterback, I think it's under pressure and again, it's the blitz. And I think when you go back to that Georgia tape, anytime Georgia brought pressure, Arch Manning was hanging onto the football, looking for that home run throw downfield, whether it was a double move, a deep shot, the incompletion you see right there, all under pressure where he had options open underneath, whether it was a hot route, replace the linebacker that's blitzing, whether it was a quick option to get the ball out of his hands. He actually had a longer time to throw, average time to throw last year against the blitz than he did against a regular 4-man rush. So as he matures, the ability to get the ball out of his hands quickly is going to be paramount for him to have success, not only on the road at Ohio State. There's going to be some pressure on him. There's going to be some blitzes. It's going to be loud. Get the ball out of your hands as a young quarterback. Obviously, right, this is something that every young quarterback struggles with. I expect him to be better in this area, but that's one thing I need to see.
Yes, and look, it's not really his debut, but it sort of feels like one, and it may be the most hyped and anticipated debut in college football history. Let's move on. Field Yates, you used the word solidified to describe one college quarterback. Which is the most solidified quarterback in the country, and how do you define that?
Yeah, it's Cade Klubnik from Clemson, because we have now seen him start for 2 seasons. He's played in 38 career games for Clemson. He's got over 1,000 career passing attempts, and he had a remarkable year last year. He had 43 total touchdowns. He is already in the top 5 for most major passing categories at Clemson. He completed just under 64% of his passes last year, but I see a more accurate thrower than that number would suggest. On top of that, this guy is the real deal athletically. Klubnik rushed for nearly 500 yards last season. Keep in mind, for those that don't know this, in college football, quarterbacks get negative yards for sacks taken in terms of rushing total. So that number could have been well close to 600 yards rushing last season for Cade Klubnik. Very good leader, very good processor as well. They've got a big test this upcoming weekend against LSU, but I expect them to handle business in a top 10 matchup that should kick off to a potentially very, very strong season for a loaded Clemson roster.
Yeah, a lot of